Hey fly fishing friends, Lance here from Fly Fish Food with another skill builder. This time we're going to tackle staying warm in the winter. Tips for layering, tips to stay warm, and also some tips on what to avoid.
That's a big brown.
Alright, first up we're going to start down low. We're going to start on the feet. So number one thing you got to avoid when you're trying to keep your feet warm, there's a couple of ththings, but number one, cotton. You do not want cotton socks, okay? You need materials that wick moisture away and or will insulate when wet. So generally speaking, wool socks, ideally with some sort of polypropylene liner. It doesn't have to be Simms brand. There are lots of brands of socks that are poly and wool, but a nice merino wool sock. You choose the length. It could be over the calf. It could be all the way up to your knee. Usually calf-high socks are plenty for me. There's these bulky booties that have Primaloft in them from Simms. These are really cool for extreme cold conditions as well. They're just designed to go inside your wader to keep your foot extra warm. The second thing you want to avoid are boots or booties on your waders that are too small. If you're going to wear two pair of socks underneath your wader, you need to have enough space in both the wader booty, the neoprene booty, and in your wading boot to make sure that you're not compressing your foot because you need blood circulation to stay warm. So all the right layering materials in the world does you no good if you don't have room and your feet are constricted and you're not getting blood flow. So first and foremost, make sure you're getting blood flow. Next, avoid cotton. And then just layer. Wicking layer close to the skin, insulating layer over the top, because almost all waders have a neoprene booty on them that doesn't breathe. Something that insulates when wet, like wool, is an ideal material. The Primaloft also will insulate when it's a little bit wet. That's another good option. So we've got your feet covered. Now let's move up. Same thing applies. You want something, a base layer preferably, that fits relatively tight to the skin so it's easier to get layers over the top. But you want a base layer that wicks moisture away and also provides a little bit of insulation. Polypropylene, silk weight type, against the skin, wicking. These are from Simms, but lots of companies make them. You can get stuff from Patagonia. Almost every outdoor brand will have some sort of a wicking base layer. After the base layer, you move to an insulating layer. These could be synthetic joggers. They can be fleece pants like this from Simms, fleece pants like this from Squala. Again, Patagonia makes some. You can get Primaloft type pants, grid type pants, grid fleece. There's all kinds of different fleece pants. The idea, again, something against your skin that's wicking moisture away, something that doesn't hold moisture. So you don't want cotton sweats. You don't want to wear Levi's. Anything that's got cotton that's going to absorb water and hold water will not let your breathable waders get rid of that water vapor. So the base layer that wicks, the insulating layer that will also wick but also insulate you from the cold. Since most of us use breathable waders these days, even in the winter time, you have to create the insulation underneath the wader. The wader has a little insulation, but not very much. They're mostly just a waterproof layer. So the colder the water is, the more layers you might need. You might need a base layer, a mid layer, and an outer layer, or most of the winter, at least where we live here, I get by with just a base layer and a fleece over the top. And then the outside layer would be your waders, or if you're fishing in a boat and you're not going to be in the water, maybe a set of bibs. But you'd want something on the outside of both of these that will block water and block wind to allow the insulation pieces to work. So we're using these again in mind, thinking that you're going to have waders on or some sort of waterproof pants on in a boat. Let's move up to your chest. You're going to hear a repetitive pattern here. You need base layers that wick moisture and then layers over the top. So some sort of base layer. Fleece is ideal. Polypropylene works pretty well again, just something that's going to insulate but wick moisture away from your body. Just in case you perspire a little bit, you don't want your base layer to be wet and damp. That will make you cold. This is one from Simms, but you can get them again from every company. This is kind of a cool one because it has a hood on it. Hoods are really nice because they help keep your head warm. So if we have a base layer, then we have more of a slightly thicker insulating layer, like that piece, or like this guy from Squala. Again, fleece material, very high insulation value, relatively lightweight, some with, some without a hoodie. That's optional depending on what you want, but no cotton, something that will just insulate. One really good option also is a vest. This one's from Patagonia, but again, every company makes them. This is another style of a puffy. They're very, very lightweight and add a lot of insulation, and a vest is nice to help just keep your core very warm. On top of that, if it's not going to be wet and or windy, you can get by with just some more fleece or another puffy like this Primaloft from Sims. Again, a very light piece, has a hood, very warm. I use those a lot as an exterior layer this time of year, or if it's going to be a little more wet, I'll put something more waterproof over the top like I'll show you in a second. This is a similar piece, thicker fleece, again with a hood, very lightweight from Squala. Those are very, very high insulation value. And then since you don't have waders up above, if it's going to be really windy, if it's going to be wet, or it's going to snow, you'll want a waterproof layer, ideally a windproof layer on the outside, something like a guide jacket, any sort of Gore-Tex or waterproof breathable material for that outer layer will block wind and keep you dry. That is how you keep your abdomen warm. Layering is key. The more layers, obviously, the more warmth, the more bulk you have. If you get too much layer, the nice thing is you can shed a layer or two, stick it in your backpack, leave some of it in the car. You want to be over-prepared rather than under-prepared. All right, next up, we need to keep your head warm. If you've studied how to stay warm, you obviously know that a lot of the heat escapes from your head. So a hat is very important. You can wear a ball cap, which will help insulate a little, but sticking a beanie or something over the top will insulate even more. I usually like to do that combo, a regular cap with some sort of a beanie over the top. That way I still keep the brim to keep glare and sunlight off my face. I can see into the water better, but I put the extra layer over the top, covering the top of my head and my ears. Any of these can work. You got to get one that fits your head, obviously. Try them out for length, make sure they're going to cover over your ears, but some sort of a beanie or a stocking cap to keep your head warm is critical. Also, as I mentioned in that last one, hoods are very, very nice. When the wind's blowing from your back, you can throw up an insulating hood and just an exterior layer, shell type of a hood to keep the water and everything from getting you. It's amazing how much wind can blow down your neck even with lots of layers on and make your body very cold. So a hood is very, very nice. One other option is to wear a buff, the same sun buffs that I wear all summer, I often wear in the winter. Even though they're not designed to insulate, it's just one more insulating piece around your neck and around your face. You can buy some of those that are actually insulating, but if you have one you use in the summer, I would suggest using it as the winter also. Keep in mind, keep your head warm. It helps keep the rest of your body warm. All right, last up, and probably the one we get asked about the most, how to keep your hands warm. This is a troublesome one. We're dealing with water while we're fishing in the winter. You're gonna get wet, it's gonna be cold. So a few tips. Number one, same thing applies here. You don't want something that's going to hold water. So no cotton gloves, you don't want anything like that. You want something that insulates when it's wet, like wool gloves, or something that you can get most of the water out, like fleece gloves. The wool will hold a lot of water. They do insulate when wet. They're hard to get water out. You could wring them out occasionally, but they do work pretty well. Fleece will get wet, but you can usually shake out, or I sometimes smack them against my waders to throw as much of the water out of them as possible. The other things to consider are whether you want them fingerless, like those, or fingerless with some sort of a fold-over mitt. I picked these two particular models from Sims and from Orvis. It's Orvis Pro, the Sims Windstopper fold-over mitt, because normally I don't like fold-over mitts because they often have snapped onto the back or had a Velcro piece onto the back, which then your fly line just naturally wraps around. Somehow it always finds a way to wrap around that little flap. These are designed to tuck on the inside from both of these brands. So whether you're using the Sims glove or you've got the fold-over from Orvis with fingerless underneath, you can tuck both of them into this little sleeve up above, and there's no flap for your line to get caught on. So it's a little more manageable than most fold-over mitts. Both of these are awesome, highly recommend them. The one last trick I will show you is what we like to call the Dexter gloves. You don't want to get pulled over by the police with a bunch of these in the back. You look like a serial killer, but back of your car. But these actually do not insulate at all. They will block a little bit of wind, but they're not really designed to keep you warm. These are black nitrile gloves. These are a mechanic style glove. You can buy them at auto parts stores, you can buy them at a hardware store, you can find them at Amazon. We don't sell this style of glove. This is what I usually start with because they're a waterproof layer. They will not keep you really warm in extreme cold because they do not breathe. Your hands will get cold and clammy. But in moderate cold, they work pretty well. And you can combine them with a glove. You can stick them you can stick a wool glove or a fleece glove over the top of them, and then you have the insulating piece plus a waterproof piece underneath. I like the nitrile because they fit tight enough if you get the right size that I can still tie knots using all of my fingers without having to take the gloves off. They fit relatively well. They're not very long, so if you're not careful, you can get water inside them. But if you carry a spare pair or two in the chest pack, they weigh almost nothing. So that's one tip, just black nitrile gloves. The last is hand warmers and also just taking a break. Hand warmers, foot warmers, there's all kinds of products out there that are designed to help keep you warm while you're out there getting wet and catching fish. One tip that Brigham mentioned is sticking hand warmers in your wader pockets. That's a really good idea. You can stick hand warmers in the backs of your gloves after you put them on. Slide them underneath the glove, between your hand and the glove. It will heat the blood that's going into your hand. And the last one is just take a break. If you're really cold, stop fishing for a second, huddle up on the bank, have a little snack, tuck your hands in, rub them together, do some jumping jacks, do something to get the blood flow going and warm up to allow you to fish a little longer. Hopefully we gave you a few ideas on how to stay warm head to toe. Now you can go fish all winter long.